All right, hello once again, Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College, and as part of the Rankin Technical College AWD 1000 Web Development Technologies class, I've been going through a series of video presentations I'm creating based off of the Mozilla Developer Network's Learn Web Development series. I'm in Tools and Testing, Understanding Client-Side JavaScript Frameworks, and we're in the React portion, and we are componentizing our React app. At this point, our app is a monolith. All right, and what is that? It's a single block of stone. In other words, it's there, but it doesn't do anything. All right, which is not, of course, what we want to have happen in here. So, before we can make it do things, we need to break it apart into manageable descriptive components. React doesn't have any hard rules for what this is, how to do it, etc. It's up to you. In this article, we'll show you a sensible way to break up our app into components. Defining a component can seem tricky until you have some practice, but the gist is it represents an obvious chunk of the app. If it does, it's probably a component. If it gets reused often, it's probably a component. Says the second bullet there, the one about reuse, is especially valuable. Making a component out of common UI elements allows you to change your code in one place and have those changes propagate everywhere that component is used. You don't have to break everything into components right away either. It says let's take the second bullet as an inspiration and make a component out of our most reused, most important piece, and that is a to-do list item. All right. All right, so make a to-do. Before we make a component, we should create a new file for it. In fact, we should make a directory for just our components. The following commands make a components directory, and within that, a file called to-do. Let's actually start to implement some of this terminal stuff so you get a look and feel on how to use it. All right, so that's still up and running. Let's stop the run here. And let's clear the screen. All right, so we're right here. So we're there. So let's paste these things in. So we made that particular folder called components. And let's see. And next, we're going to do a touch on it, which basically says we want to create a new file. We're telling it we want it to go into our new components folder, and it should be called todo.js. So notice now if I type in ls, I now get in there. There should be a... Where is my folder called components? Oh, it's under source. So let's do a cd to source. And now let's do an ls. All right, there's our components folder. Let's do a cd to components. And let's do an ls, and there's our todo.js. Okay, hopefully I didn't ball that up too much that I confused you, because that, of course, was not my intention. All right, it says open it up and give it its first line. And I'm just going to open it up inside of what I have been doing here. So there's our components. There's our to-do. I'm just going to open it up in here. There's nothing in there right now. It's when you do a touch, you get a brand new empty file. So let's import React from React. Since we're going to make a component called to-do, we can start by adding the code for that to-do as well. And notice here we're doing the export at the beginning instead of at the end. In fact, if you may or may not have noticed before, that when I forgot that curly brace, it gave me an error, and it said export must be either done at the beginning or the end. Okay, so let's add this. Which really doesn't have anything in it. Okay. This is okay, but our component has to return something. Go back to source in our app.js, copy the first li from inside the unordered list and paste it into the to-do list so that it reads like this. All right, well, that's our function to do. In fact, rather than doing that, I'm just going to grab what they have here. Okay. So I'm just going to remove everything and then put in this. So what is it doing? It's returning our unordered list, right? Well, we've got in there the eat, etc., which looks like it's the first item that we had in the unordered list. Note, components must always return something. If at any point in the future you try to render a component that does not return anything, React comes back with an error. Our to-do component is complete for now. We can use it. In app.js, add the following near the top of the file to import the to-do. So let's go into our app.js. I'm going to close a few of these things because I want to make sure I'm opening the right ones. Looks like those are all correct. All right, so there's our app.js. And again, it said that we were to put that import statement up near the top. To my knowledge, the order, if we have multiple import statements, unless one were to depend on another one, I don't think it really matters the order in which we put them in. With this component imported, you can replace all of the li elements in app.js with to-do component calls. So it should look like this. All right, so with the component imported, you can replace all the LIs in app.js. All right, so from the beginning LI to the end with this. Now, not too much in there, and I've got that in there twice, so I think that would give me an error, but all right, so there's my UL, and it looks again like I've repeated some stuff here. I didn't realize I'd done that, but and I think this can even come over here like that if I want to do that. So all right, let's go back to the running version of this and let's refresh it. It says site cannot be completed. Oh, it's because I stopped my run. I apologize. So npm start. Now I should be able to go back and refresh. Was it 3,000? Let's check. Well, it says when you go back to your browser, you'll notice something unfortunate. Your list now repeats the first task 3 times. We do not only want to eat, we have other things to do. Next, we'll look at how to make the different component calls render unique content. All right. So that's eat, eat, eat is what it should be saying, and it's not. So eat, eat, eat. There you go. All right. We want each one of our to-dos to be unique. That should make sense to everyone and anyone watching this. So as it says, components are powerful because they let us reuse pieces of our UI and refer to one place for the source of that UI. The problem is we don't typically want to reuse all of each component. We just want to reuse most of it. That's where props come in. So the prop in these cases will be the name of the to-do. In order to track the names we want, we should ensure that each to-do has a unique name. In app.js, let's give each to-do a name prop. Let's use the names of our tasks that we had before. Now, I don't think that this is going to work right now, but we'll see. It did not change it. I did not expect it to. All right, it says when your browser refreshes, you will see the exact same thing as before. We gave our to-do some props, but we're not using them. So we've got to go back into our to-do.js to remedy that. First, modify your to-do function so that it takes props as a parameter. You can console the log your props as before if you'd like to check that they're being received correctly. I don't really care. I'm going to take for granted that they are. Once you're confident that they are, you can replace every occurrence of eat with your name prop. So we're telling it props, and we're telling it that what we want to use in there, or what we are passing in, is the name. Putting it all together, your to-do function should now read like this. All right, and I think that's got the whole thing in there, right? Yep. Whoops. All right. Again, notice props name, etc. Props name. All right. So if this works the way that it, I would think, should work now, when we come in here and we refresh, and now, well, we didn't even have to. Now we've got eat, sleep, repeat, which is what we had before. All right. Is it completed? In our original static list, only eat was checked. Once again, we want to reuse most of this. It says that's another good job of a prop. Give each to-do call a new prop of completed. All right, the first each should have a value of true, the rest should be false. Now, think about this. This is what you're going to have to start to do in here for this to make some sense. Now we have one property. Each to-do has a name property. Now each to-do has two properties, a name property and a completed property. And you have to start to realize the correlation here that we are also, after we save this, we're going to have to come back in here and we're going to have to make some changes in our to-do.js because right now it's not recognizing there's another property. So as before, as it says, we must go back to the to-do.js because right now all three are checked because we copied in the check mark for all three of them. We don't want that. All right. Change the default checked attribute on the input so that it's equal to the completed prop. Once you're done, the input should look like this. So again, we're telling it to depend on the completed rather than having it say the default checked. All right. So let's go back to our to-do. This input line, I'm going to leave them both in there for a second, now looks like this. So what changed? None of this changed up till right there. But now rather than being true, meaning it's checked, now we're telling it to look at the completed, which is a Boolean, which is true or false. So in other words, I don't even have to refresh, but eat should now be checked. However, since sleep and repeat are false, they should both not be checked. Checked. Well, do I have to refresh? Yep. Not checked, not checked. If you change each to-do component's completed prop, your browser will check or uncheck them appropriately. All right, and it expects that since it expects we're working with Booleans here, that it'll be true or false. All right, right now our to-do component gives every task an ID attribute of to-do 0. That is bad because ID attributes must be unique, especially if later we were to log this thing out and want it to go, for example, to a, I don't know, let's say that we wanted to go to a database. I'm at 15 minutes. There's not a lot left in here, but there's enough. That I'm going to stop right here and pick it up in the next lecture.